Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. I am so excited to be here.
I know, I'm so excited to have you. So it's crazy because the audience doesn't know this, but we go way back. Like we met in first year undergrad in Saugeen, Maitland Hall at Western University, and that was 2007. So that just goes to show where how old we are and where we're at. But Phoebe, I'm so happy to have you come on and just chat with my audience. So Phoebe is a pediatric sleep consultant. So that means she deals with everything from infants to toddlers, anything in that range, whether it's sleep patterns, whether it's rising and just figuring out a routine. This is what we are going to be talking about today. So thank you, Phoebe, for joining me. But before we get into kind of more of those questions, this wasn't what you went to school for.
No, I come from a marketing background.
Yeah, so tell the audience how you've made that transition, because this I remember you were in like the business school. So what has happened between 2011 when we graduated to now? Give us your story.
Sure. I came into this pretty naturally. So my background is in communications and I have worked in marketing for the past 10 years. But I'm a mother of two. So I have a 3.5-year-old daughter named Ruby, and I have a 20-month-old son named Jasper. So when I had Jasper, Ruby was almost 2 years old, and I had this sweet little baby boy, and he was such a great sleeper when he was a newborn, and life was great. And then the 4-month mark hit, and things went downhill so fast. So, I went from sleeping 4, 5, 6 hour stretches a night and having that energy to be able to keep up with my toddler during the day to waking and nursing Jasper back to sleep between 6 and 8 times a night. So by the 6-month mark, I was the shell of a human being. Like I couldn't function. I couldn't take proper care of my daughter. I had no energy to parent my son. I just felt like the shell of a human. So I knew at that point that I needed professional help. So I started reaching out to sleep consultants. The problem was that nobody wanted to take us on. And that is because Jasper had something called breath holding spells. So they're really scary to watch, but they're actually quite harmless. What would happen is if he got upset and cried really hard, he'd hold his breath and go unconscious. So petrifying to watch, but not dangerous at all. But because of that, no sleep consultants wanted to work with us until finally I reached out to Amanda Jewson at Baby's Best Sleep, and she agreed to work with us as long as I got our doctor's approval to move forward with Jasper's breath holding spells. And Jasper's doctor is also my doctor, and she was so for it because she saw how much my mental health was suffering from not sleeping. So we moved forward with sleep training. He did not have any breath holding spells throughout the sleep training process. And I am not exaggerating when I say that within 3 nights, my life was changed. So he went from, nursing 8 times a night to sleeping for 11.5 hours in his crib every night, and then having 2 nice long naps during the day. And, he was such a happier baby because he was so tired too. And I, without a doubt, transformed into, the parent and the person and the spouse that I wanted to be and that I had been, pre-sleep deprivation. So it was just such a positive and life-changing experience for me. And my only regret is that I waited so long and had so many really tough months before taking that leap and, going through that process. And then, a couple weeks later, Amanda Jewson, the consultant that I worked with for Jasper's, announced that she was starting a sleep consultant certification program through her company, Baby's Best Sleep. And, I just felt like it was meant to be. So I applied and interviewed and got a spot and went through the process and I no longer work in marketing. I opened my own sleep consultant company, Slumber Shine, a few months ago. And here we are. And now
Yeah.
I'm helping families do that same thing that I did that was so life-changing for me.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that you had made this transition, and obviously we're friends on Facebook, and I was like, wow, this is so cool because even in my line of work, working and training pregnant and postpartum women, one of the major concerns that women have and that I hear about is infant sleep. And to be honest with you, I actually don't know a lot of sleep consultants specifically. Like I know lactation consultants that also help with sleep. I know doulas that also come in and do some sort of sleep training. So what sets you apart from those other practitioners, and how is it very specialized in your field?
Yeah. So my true sleep training plan, I only work with babies that are older than 16 weeks. So I know some of those other providers help with newborn sleep, and I do have a newborn sleep package, but it's more educational. It's not really any type of, um, program. It's just like how to start healthy sleep habits. So my 16-week program is for babies. Um, my 2-week program is for babies older than 16 weeks. And we want to make sure that their circadian rhythms have developed and that what we're asking them to do is developmentally appropriate for them to do, which is why I wait until that age. Um, and what we're really doing is we are teaching them how to sleep independently, because when they are sleeping independently, when they wake throughout the night after each cycle, they're able to put themselves back to sleep. And as a result of that, parents get to sleep too, in addition to baby sleeping.
Yeah, definitely. So what now in your experience, especially going through this training and now being in the field for a little bit yourself, what are some of like the common things that you're starting to see with clients in the people you've worked with, or even people that you've maybe your colleagues have worked with?
So I would say the number one thing that I help parents overcome is what I call sleep associations. So that would be anything that you do to assist your baby to sleep. So that could be rocking them to sleep, that could be feeding them to sleep, that could be pacifier use. And I want to be clear that there's nothing wrong with having a sleep association. So if you're watching this and you're like, oh my gosh, I rocked my
I
baby
do
to
all
sleep,
those.
that is not a problem. Okay. So it's only a problem for you if it's a problem for you. So
Mhm.
if you like rocking your baby to sleep and your baby likes being rocked to sleep, you know what? That is great. Keep on doing what you're doing. Keep on doing what works for you and what works for your family. But if you find, and this often happens, after that 4-month mark when circadian rhythm has developed, that something that had previously been working for you
Mhm.
no longer works for you. So, you used to rock your baby or feed your baby to sleep for 5 minutes, put them down, and they would sleep for 4 or 5 hours. But now you're rocking them for an hour to get them down. And, they sleep for 45 minutes and they wake up and you have to start the process again. If that has become a problem for you, it's no longer working for you, it's no longer working for your family, then you can come to someone like me and I can help you remove that sleep association. And I would say that is without a doubt kind of the biggest piece that I work on with my clients. And almost every client that I work with has some type of sleep association.
Okay. Okay. So that's like falling asleep. What about the waking up? Like what sort of things do you see with infant rising that become problematic maybe for parents?
So it's all interconnected. So I find if you're rocking your baby to sleep at bedtime, once you stop doing that, you'll likely no longer see those nighttime wakings because they're not requiring that same habit in order to get back to sleep. But a really common thing that I see right now is early morning wakings. And that's just because of the time of the year, right? So it's so light so early in the spring and summer, and our babies are really sensitive when it comes to light. So, you or I, we can wake up, look at the clock, see it's 5 o'clock in the morning and go, you know what? No, we're going to roll over and go back
Yeah.
to sleep. But babies are a lot more sensitive. So, it's likely that once your child is exposed to the light, they're up for the day. So I get tons of questions and comments at this time of the year about those early mornings. And my number one piece of advice for that would be to make your baby's room really, really, really dark. Like
Yeah.
you want to hold your hand in front of your face like this with the door shut and the lights off. And if you can see your hand, it's not dark enough.
Fair enough. Yeah, because even like a little bit of shadow, like that can still trigger them to wake up, or they
For
see
sure.
that and they're going to be drawn to that, right? So
Yeah,
any sort of light whatsoever, even if it's a crack, the infant will respond to that. It makes sense because I'm the same way. I wake up earlier in the summertime just because it's brighter out. Like I don't
of
even need to
course.
set my alarm most days. So that's really intuitive, but I think it's like one of those things that you almost like, then I think parents would ask, well, then how do I get my baby up? What if my baby just keeps sleeping? Is that a bad thing? Is that a scary thing? Like how does that change then the rest of the day for the infant?
So, I would, so it depends on your child and your child's schedule. Typically, it depends on the baby's age, but I want to make sure that there's enough time throughout the day for your baby to have their full wake windows, for your baby to play lots, for your baby to engage lots, eat lots. So, my kind of without knowing a specific child and situation, my go-to is usually 7:30. I'd like baby to be up, and then that way they can fit all those things in throughout the day. So and that's assuming baby's having nice long nighttime sleeps and are going to bed at an appropriate time for their age. If those things aren't happening, maybe wake up time would be a little later, but I don't see anything wrong with waking your child up in order to keep them on a schedule that works for everybody.
Yeah. So then it's all about really like parents putting their children onto a schedule that works for them, as opposed to letting the child put you on a schedule that's likely not going to be working for you.
Yes, I know it's true. I mean, it seems counterintuitive to wake a sleeping baby. I hear it all the time. But in my experience as a parent and as a sleep consultant, you know, keeping them to a general routine, it doesn't need to be anything crazy, but keeping them on a general routine will just make everyone's life easier. And also, limiting that daytime sleep to make sure that they have enough sleep pressure built up throughout the day to sustain those nice long nighttime sleeps, which is really what we want, right?
Right. Right. So when people come to you, um, I'm assuming that it's like, this is like the last resort. Like we've tried everything. They're coming to you now, some maybe out of desperation. How long do people realistically end up working with you before you're able to help them?
That's a great question. So, you are right. Most people have either know what they need to do or have tried doing it themselves and been unsuccessful. So, they're coming to me. And my process is really quick. So, the whole program is 2 weeks. But with that being said, the majority of babies and children are sleeping so much better within 3 nights. And we just take the rest of
Amazing.
those 2 weeks to kind of, perfect the schedule. But really, it's a very quick kind of transformation. And it is so exciting to watch every time. I never get sick of watching that 3-day transformation.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, you've been there, right? So you
Mhm.
not only you sympathize and empathize with these parents because you've been through this, but like, I mean, your journey is a little bit different. Why don't you tell the audience like why you're a little bit different when it comes to maybe some other sleep consultants or even other businesses?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, I'm a parent of two. So, I told you my story with Jasper and his sleep journey, but I'm also the parent of a neurodiverse child. So, Ruby is autistic, and the experience of parenting an autistic child really, I think, gives me a sense of compassion and understanding that not all consultants have. And I also think I really truly know, I don't think I know how each child really is different. And sometimes that mainstream messaging about what's right and what works as a parent does not always apply, because that is very much the case with Ruby. And I think that I bring that compassion and I bring that understanding to my work every single day.
Mhm. Yeah, that's incredible. And I mean, I do hear this a lot with different moms where the direct experience that they've had has somehow changed either what they want to do with their life or how they want to help people moving forward. Because a lot of women think that they're in this alone. A lot of families think that they're in this alone until they start actually, reaching out, doing maybe some of their own research where they're like, wow, there's other people that are struggling. And maybe I know what to do to help, or I can reach out and ask them what to do to help. So I think that's just incredible that you've decided to take, essentially you've switched careers, but it's been based around your motherhood journey and the experiences you've had just with raising young kids and infants. And I just think that's so incredible, Phoebe, because I just think you're going to be able to help so many people, whether people are going through, a really difficult child or a difficult time, or, their child has some sort of developmental or cognitive abilities that differ from maybe the norm. I think it's super important that there's someone that they can find to do that. So with that, was that a separate specialization within your training or is that something you just picked up by learning because you've had a child who's autistic and you've had to kind of adapt and grow with that?
Yeah. So my training is just in, sleep in general for babies and toddlers. It's not specific to the neurodiverse community. My personal experience, I have a child who I have gotten to sleep very well, although it was not always the case, with an autism diagnosis. So I do eventually want to move my business in that direction and start helping that part of the community. But right now it's just personal experience and my own, journey. And then my actual schooling is just with sleep in general. Yeah.
Awesome. And so when people work with you, say maybe initially, what's the earliest that you'll work with someone and kind of what's the latest? Like what's the age of the infants that you ideally want to see?
So if it's any baby under 16 weeks, I have something called the newborn education package. And it is really just, a call with me, a 1 hour, um, a 1 hour kind of call. I answer all your questions. I go through some healthy sleep tips and gentle strategies that can be used. But it's not actually a sleep training program. Those sleep training programs are for babies 16 weeks and up. And I work with kids up until, 4.5, sometimes 5 years old. So yeah, a big age range.
Yeah. And then have you had experiences with clients who worked with you earlier on, maybe around the 16 to 24 week mark, and then had to reach out again because their child went through another change? Is that something that's quite common? Like how does the aging of the infant impact maybe some of the sleep training techniques that you teach, or is it very universal, kind of the stuff that you coach and do?
So I try and arm my clients with all the information that they need in order to get through those next stages and hurdles without needing to, go back to the drawing board. We talk about things like dropping a nap, moving from a crib to a bed, like all those things that would apply for that child in the next year or so. But I am always happy to hop back on the phone with a previous client and help them, talk them through an upcoming transition. I had a client from a few months ago who just booked this big trip to France, and she just wanted a quick 15-minute call to just, talk about like the best strategies for tackling this trip with her little kids. So I'm always happy to, hop on and talk about things like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Because I was just thinking, yeah, like trips or travel would be a big one where maybe people would reach out again. But is there any research to support, changing of the seasons or even like moon cycle where kids are just like, a little bit, their sleep is just thrown off? Because I just anecdotally speaking, my stroller moms or my postpartum clients that come to class or to our training sessions are like, Yeah, I didn't sleep last night. I look at a calendar and I'm like, oh, it was a full moon. So is there any like rationale to that? Do you notice anything around those times of the month, even with your kids?
Well, so I actually did read that not just babies, but people in general sleep worse in the days leading up to a full moon. So there is some
Interesting.
truth behind that. I'm not quite sure why, but it is a thing. But I would say seasons are a bigger effect, like as we talked about before, in terms of you know, um, brightness that affects sleep more. I never get calls in February about early morning wakings. They're always in June and July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the time change? So like as a professional consultant in this field, do you think that we should scrap the whole daylight
Oh,
savings time, spring forward, fall back? Like, is it
I
causing
think
more
so.
harm to kids?
It's just a pain. Like it's not that hard to manage in terms of changing your child's sleep. You just split the difference. So if baby was used to going for nap one at 9:30, then you bring it up to 9 and it's really 10 in their head. And then a few days after that, you go to the next time and you just give them, a week to make that transition. I always talk about this on my social media during those time change kind of times of the year. So if you need any
Yeah.
advice, follow along then. But yeah, I'd love to get rid of that. I just find it totally annoying as a parent and just as a person.
Yeah, for sure. I was like, I feel it. I'm like, I don't want it. Can we, all the sleep consultants across Canada just like petition the government right now? Like, we just don't want to deal with our infants
Great
waking up.
idea.
Yeah. So actually kind of to segue, because I've also seen some comments come in. So I'm going to kind of piggyback off one of the comments, but like, is there an ideal room temperature even? Because we talked about total darkness, but what about temperature and even just like maybe what infants have in their crib or toddlers have in their bed? How does that impact their sleep, and how can we maybe facilitate better sleep with their environment in that regard?
Great question. Yes. So in addition to dark room, we do want actually a relatively cool room. So we're looking at between, 17 to 21 degrees Celsius. And actually the reason we want it to be so cool is because our bodies naturally decrease about 1 degree overnight. And when the room is too warm, it makes it hard for our bodies or our baby's bodies to do that temperature decrease, which can cause, trouble falling asleep. It can cause nighttime wakings. It can cause early morning wake ups. So we do want a cool room. We want cotton pajamas, a light cotton sleep sack, if that's appropriate for the time of the year, but cooler than you would typically think.
Yeah. And I've read in just my research and in passing that children don't thermoregulate the same way as adults do, just
Mhm.
because of the surface area. They're tinier humans. Do you have any information on that, like why that is, and like just keep how parents can maybe see if their kids are too hot or too cold without actually having to take a thermometer to them? Like what's
Yeah,
your I
I find you can tell if baby is waking up really flushed, so with really, red cheeks, warm ears, that typically is an indication that they were too warm. Um, you can sometimes, I know parents sometimes feel like their baby is too cold because their hands are cold, but that's okay. You don't really want to tell based on hands. You want to, touch the back of the neck, touch the cheek, places like that. But if you see that flushed, if you see that like kind of sweating look, it means baby was likely too hot.
Okay, interesting. Because yeah, like I again, for my perspective, you hear all these things, and then it's nice to actually talk to someone to either validate or at least give us tips. So, what are maybe like your top 3 tips for parents dealing with maybe just basic sleep
Sure,
training? Because I know we could go down the rabbit hole.
we
Maybe
could.
yeah. So maybe like what are your top 3 tips that you kind of really are either your core or that you tend to primarily go to with your clients?
Okay, yeah. So these tips wouldn't be, they wouldn't be they're not a sleep plan, it's not sleep training, but these are things that I would kind of like include in a plan because they're just healthy tips to,
Mhm.
kind of implement with your child. So the number one one would be environment. So as we talked about, a cool room, a very dark room, safe environment for your baby to sleep. So, that would be a crib, a bassinet, a pack and play, just a fitted sheet, no bumpers, no loveys or pillows, especially at that younger age. When your child gets older, you can introduce a lovey and things like that. The second one would be a solid bedtime routine. So it is so important. Even for adults, like having a bedtime routine is never a bad idea.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, like it's never a bad idea, but it really is so important when it comes to signaling to your child that it's time to sleep. So we want to see that consistency at bedtime, but we also want to see that consistency at nap time. So nap time routines can just be a condensed version of bedtime routine. So, instead of doing a bath, maybe you just wash baby's face and hand, but you still put them, into their sleep sack. You can read some books, sing some songs, put them into their crib awake. It can be whatever you want. We just want to see that consistency. Okay. And I would say the third one is, really watching those wake windows, or trying to keep your baby on a schedule that is appropriate for their age. So watching those wake windows, and watching those sleepy cues, and putting your baby down when it's appropriate to put them down. And those would be kind of my top 3 suggestions for healthy sleep, regardless of your baby's age.
Yeah, no, those are awesome. And again, some of them, like, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. And some of them it's like, maybe this is something we work on as a family. But I'm going to kind of switch gears slightly, but not really, just because I have a couple of women that I work with that are actually moving. So either they're moving across the country and there's going to be like a 3-hour time change there, or I actually have a woman that I'm working with who's moving back home to New Zealand. So that's going to be Canada to New Zealand. We're dealing with like a huge change. So in that regard, when people move or relocate, what is kind of a normal time range that a child will adapt versus when is it kind of far enough along that if they haven't adjusted that they should reach out to a sleep consultant? Or do you think they should reach out to someone like you before they even make that move to try to get some planning and preparation in order? Like, what are your thoughts on relocating and travel?
It's never, if you're concerned about your child's sleep, it's never a bad idea to reach out to me or someone like me. I think as a parent, there are just times where you need that support, and, and that's why professionals like me exist, to support in big transitions like that. In terms of physically moving or even just travel, when it comes to changing time zones, there's just a couple of tips that I can give you, right here. So if you guys who are moving are watching, the first would be to, when you get to your new time zone, and this is whether you're moving or whether you're just traveling, you want to get baby to bedtime that is appropriate in that time zone on day 1. So what you want to do is either add or take away naps throughout the day to get baby to, 7 p.m., let's just say, in that time zone. You also want to kind of recreate your home environment. So anything that you could do, bring your crib sheet, your unwashed crib sheet from home, bring your sound machine, anything you can do to kind of recreate that environment. And then also you want to expose yourself, your baby, and yourself, to sunlight in that new time zone during the times that they should be awake, because that will help your baby's body adjust to that new time zone. And I would say within a week or 2, baby should have transitioned. And if things are still a little bumpy, feel free to reach out, or you could reach out in advance to try and get, a specific plan for your child and your move if you want.
Yeah, for sure. No, that honestly, all of this is such great advice. Like, I just wish I would have had you on so much sooner. I wish you would have became a sleep consultant like 5 years ago, because I probably could have given you 100 clients already. But kind of on that note, actually, so you would work with people almost solely online, correct? Like, how do you actually interact with your clients? What does that look like to work with you?
So it's pretty much all virtual unless you happen to live in Picton, Ontario, which is where I just moved. But that's the great thing about technology and doing what I do is I work with clients all across Canada. So the way it works is if you're interested kind of in knowing more about what I do, or if you want to tell me about the issues that you're going through with your child's sleep, you can just book a discovery call with me. We have a quick 15-minute, no obligation call. You tell me about what's going on. I ask you some questions. I let you know if I think that if my services would be a good fit for you. And then I send you a really long questionnaire. And that questionnaire tells me everything about not just your baby and your baby's sleep habits, but your family schedule, everything that I need to know in order to create a customized plan for you, your child, and your family. And then we get on a 1-hour video call during the day on the night that we're going to start sleep training. So the day of the night that we start, and I walk you through the whole plan. You ask me all of your questions, and then I support you virtually through night 1 until baby is asleep. And then for the following 2 weeks, we are essentially best friends and we're texting all day long. We have a bunch of follow-up calls and, we just work really closely together to get your child on that schedule that you're looking for.
Awesome. So it's like basically like you're on call, you're just in that constant communication and you're essentially taking out all the guesswork. Like yes. Parents tell you when their kids wake up, you're like, this is what we're going to do to get them back down. Like
no guessing. It's all on me. All you have to do is listen, essentially. Yeah.
Now, do you ever have clients that don't listen or like have trouble listening? Like, what's like the hardest thing for parents to accept and maybe do or implement that you say?
So I find that some parents are really nervous, and I understand that because going into this process myself years ago, I was really nervous. So sometimes it just takes sometimes I feel like a bit of a cheerleader because I know what is going to happen when the plan is followed, but we just need to get to the point where they can see that. So sometimes there's a little bit of, apprehension or nervousness at the beginning, but then we become besties. Like as soon as, that first hump is like, we've made it through, and then they're a lot more, once a parent sees some success, they're a lot more open to kind of following through because they'll see more success, right? Yeah.
For sure. It's like that. They need that first night or two to see that subtle change. And then by 3-4 that you've got them bought in and, they see the value essentially. But again, just to know, like, if you're dealing with anything sleep-wise, it doesn't have to be the extreme of like, you don't have to wait for the weeks of sleepless nights. Like, even if there's something that's happening reoccurringly every week or so, even if it's one night a week, like that's some sort of patterning change that maybe could be broken or maybe could be adjusted or adapted in a different way to make it better for the infant and also for the routine. So I think I honestly, like, you have just dropped so many awesome knowledge bombs, and I'm not surprised that people are besties with you because like you're such a positive, happy person. Like I always, and it's just incredible to hear your journey and now also see how you're able to help other families and other parents really kind of take back as it's kind of sad to say, like power, right? You feel really helpless when you're dealing with an infant who has irregular sleep, who's crying all the time, and just the stress that can cause. So I just want to like thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and the stuff that you're able to even share with us here, because it's been awesome. So yeah, thanks so much, Phoebe.
I've loved being here. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I'm just going to throw it out to the audience. If there's any questions, you can pop it into the chat. I'm going to scroll through quickly just to see if there was anything that I missed while we were chatting away. I did try to pick up some of the things. So Amy says, hello. She was your roommate in Saugeen. She jumped on the call. So awesome. Okay, yeah, we talked about weather, which is great. And then the cold hands, cold feet, perfect. Yeah, I mean, this has been awesome. So, well, the question was if you're just on vacation. So say you're away for like 5 to 10 days. Again, you want to get your infant on that new routine within that first day, right?
Yeah. And I would give your child, a couple of nights to kind of adapt to the new environment. You will likely see some protests. They're used to sleeping at home in a room. This is new sights, new smells, new everything. So, what you want to do is, give them a night or two to adjust, recreate your home environment as well as you can when you're away. Make that really dark room, portable blackout blinds or a slumber pod tent, whatever you can do to make it really dark, and try not to introduce any assistance to sleep that you don't want to create as a habit. So
Okay.
if you start rocking your child to sleep in order to get them to sleep those 2 nights, it's likely going to be a problem. So just try and avoid introducing something new in those first 2 nights. And, baby should adjust. Also, just go into travel with a positive mindset. If you go into a trip thinking, my child is never going to sleep, this is going to be the worst experience, that's what's going to happen. Okay. So
Yeah.
you want to go into it thinking, of course, there's going to be some bumps in the road. This is a new experience for my child. This is, everything is new, but they can handle it. I have faith in them. We're going to try and stick to our schedule as best we can, given, the trip. Things will go better than you anticipate.
Awesome. Yeah. And I mean, this is more so, when moms are trying to pitch the length of a trip to maybe their partners, is there like an ideal length that you'd want to be away? Like 4 days, say for a holiday, might not seem like long enough because your child might have to adjust to the routine and then adjust back. So like when you go away, how long do you like to go away for? Like Phoebe, give us some dates.
I would say the longer the better. When I mean,
a month.
COVID has made, travel, especially when I had a newborn, we didn't travel so much the last little while. But when Ruby was 11 months old, my husband and I took her on a European road trip, and she did great. And we just went for it, and we traveled for weeks, and she was in different Airbnbs and different environments, and sleeping in the car and sleeping in the stroller and all over the place. And you sometimes just have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that actually from a lot of people. They take their infants, like again, like 3 months to 9 months on trips, and it's so easy. They say it's like the easiest because the child is already frequently napping that they usually just adapt. But yeah, that's more for the women who want to go on holidays and want a couple extra days. So the longer the better. Everyone who's watching,
longer the
longer the better. So no, that's such great information. So we're gonna wrap up shortly, but I've kind of got like a this or that question just to kind of make it random, nothing sleep related that I can see, but these are just for you, Phoebe. So tell me what you like. Summer or winter?
Summer.
Country or city?
Country.
Yeah, you moved out of Toronto. You're a country girl now. Broccoli or green beans?
Broccoli.
Beach or mountain?
Beach.
Do you like soda or juice? Neither. Pepperoni pizza or cheese pizza?
Cheese. Classic.
Okay. This is going to be a tough one. I'm going to be slightly judgy. Does the toilet paper go over or under?
I don't know what the right answer is. I feel like the answer is over. Is it over?
If you're living with me, yes, it's over for sure. It's good. It's good. Awesome. And then are you a morning person or a night person?
Morning all the way. I am sitting at this desk at 5 a.m. every day.
Amazing. Amazing. So just to wrap up, again, thank you so much. But how do people find you and connect in contact with you? Obviously, we'll have this live up for the next 24 hours, but tell us how to reach you.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram, just at Slumber and Shine, or you can check out my website, which is www.slumberandshine.ca, or feel free to send me an email. My address is Phoebe at slumberandshine.ca. That's PHOEBE. Please reach out. I would love to chat and connect with you guys.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat it up with me and connect with my audience. We do really appreciate it, and have an amazing rest of your day and week.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. Thank you for having me.